but I just want to ask two questions, simple questions.
I'll treat your questions sincerely. Go on.
Okay. So the first question I have is, how can we be sure that the Qur'an that came 600 years after Christ is the true divine word of God?
That would be based upon the claim of the Prophet Muhammad being a messenger of God.
But since he was illiterate, that he couldn't read and write, how could he gain all the revelations? How did he come? So he's saying God gave him the Qur'an. How could that have more credibility more than the Bible? So if a lot of the people that wrote the Bible, a lot of the authors that read the Bible were eyewitnesses of Christ that saw him die, get crucified and resurrected into heaven. Because eyewitnesses prove that people were there witnessing that his crucifixion and his...
Who's the eyewitness?
John, Mark, most of his disciples.
Do you believe the disciples of Jesus authored the Gospels?
Yeah, some of the people that wrote the Gospels actually saw him ascend into heaven. How would you argue that the Quran, which came 600 years after Christ, has more credibility?
The authors of the Gospels didn't witness what they wrote.
But some of them did witness what
None
they
of them
wrote.
did. That's my claim.
Okay, that's your
None
claim.
of them did.
Okay.
Now I'm asking you,
Okay.
because you made the claim that they did. So I'm asking you now, why do you believe when you read the Gospels, you're reading eyewitness testimony? Who's told you that?
I don't know, that's just what is written in the New Testament.
Okay,
So
is this what Christian scholars believe? What you're saying?
No, I'm not saying all Christian scholars believe this, but this is what I have.
Who's Mark?
Mark is one of the...
No disciple called Mark. There's no disciple called Mark. Interrogating your argument.
Okay, continue.
I'm interrogating the premise.
Yeah.
And the premise of your argument is that the authors of the Gospels were eyewitnesses.
Some of them were eyewitnesses, not all of them. I think John, Matthew, Mark, no, not Mark, Luke. Luke was one of them.
They weren't.
But some of them were.
None of them.
No, some of them were. At least John was an eyewitness.
John, according to Christian scholarship, has 3 writers.
This is why I want you to inform me. Tell me more.
Okay, so the authors of the Gospels are anonymous. You don't know who wrote them.
Some books were written by John.
No, you don't know who wrote any of the Gospels. If you read the works of
Let's say Book of Revelations was written by John.
Who's John? Who are these names? Who are these people? Okay, so if you read J.B. Phillips, one of the great New Testament scholars, he says that all the authors of the Gospels are anonymous. Don't know who wrote them. And if you don't know who wrote something, how can you be sure what they're saying is true? How can you be sure that they were there? How can you be sure they weren't lying? How can you be sure they didn't exaggerate? How can you be sure they didn't make mistakes? And when you start interrogating what they write, you can see the glaring error. You can see the manipulation. So I'll give you an example. When the adulterous generation asked Jesus for a sign, according to the Gospel of Mark, what was this sign?
What was the sign? You tell me.
No, I'm asking you.
But he,
What was the sign?
The prophet Jonah. He will be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. That's the sign.
That's what he said.
Oh, he's wrong.
Why is he wrong? But explain why he's wrong.
No, let him talk to you.
That's the sign.
No, but he's saying what I'm saying.
You
what
can
Jesus
answer,
said.
not him.
Told you I'm not well informed. That's why I want to get both of your perspectives.
Let me explain
you
something.
and his.
Let me explain something.
Okay, go on.
For 10 years, there's only one gospel. It's Gospel of Mark. Then Matthew and Luke are written. Copied from Mark. 90% of Matthew is copied from Mark.
I'm just saying what you're saying.
90% of Matthew is copied from Mark. When Matthew copies this story, what is the sign now? So now, apparently, we're taught in Christian theology that Jesus told his disciples he had to die.
Yeah, he did tell
And
me
in
that.
3 days, he's going to be raised alive.
Right.
Okay. If this was true,
Yeah.
what would you expect the disciples to be doing after he's crucified?
Obviously, they would be preparing for his resurrection.
Did they prepare?
Some of them did prepare.
No. They didn't.